AI and robotics is revolutionizing the industries worldwide, and India is rapidly emerging as a key player in this tech transformation, from healthcare and manufacturing to education and agriculture. These advancements are not just enhancing efficiency, but also reshaping the future of work and innovation. Hi, I'm Shakur Rathar, head of India AI portal, and joining me today is Mr. Umakant Soni, chairman of AI Foundry and co-founder of ARTPARK. With his extensive experience and leadership, Mr. Umakant is at the forefront of driving this AI and robotics initiatives in India. Mr. Umakant, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. To start with, could you share a little bit about your, insights on current state of AI and robotics in India, and what are some of the most noteworthy advancements that you think are coming up?
Yeah, I think it's an exciting time, especially, if you look at it, I've been in AI space for the last 15 years. I started building chatbots in 2009-10, roughly 2 years, before OpenAI started, actually, it got formed and all that. Post that, spent quite a substantial amount of time as an investor. I helped in co-founding a venture fund focused on AI called Pi Ventures, and post that I also set up AI investment company called AI Foundry, and in together I have seen around 17 plus investments in AI space. We also set up ARTPARK, AI and Robotics Technology Park. I co-founded it. It incubated it in Institute of Science, and it probably has the largest cluster of robotics companies now. So it's exciting time. Government of India has initiated two large missions in AI and robotics space. First one was NMICPS, National Mission on Interdisciplinary Cyber Physical System, which had an outlay of close to $500 million. And recently, this India AI mission that has come together, which has around $1.25 billion to be spent on AI research and innovation ecosystem. So it's exciting time. Globally also, we are seeing AI is advancing rapidly. If the stage one of this advancement was actually on, in some sense, boiling all the human knowledge which was there on the internet and condensing into a giant brain like GPT-4, which could query using, as a chatbot.
Right.
And that has rapidly revolutionized quite a few areas, especially the generative text and images to a certain extent. The phase two I see is where AI agents are transforming business processes inside enterprises. And that's a huge way of starting with contact centers, sales support. And we are going to see, at least this year, is going to be seeing a large part of enterprises trying to attempt transformation of their customer acquisition, customer operation, customer retention with AI agents. Phase three is where it's going to get even more interesting, where you're going to have these AI agents not just impacting how we work, but how we live. And it will get into these, what we call as the physical intelligence part as well, right? So you have this massive brain put into use inside robots, which will be humanoids, which will be, logistics robots. Of course, Tesla is trying to do it in cars. So we're going to see a whole bunch of robots. By 2030 or so, we're going to have 7.5 billion people with close to 30 billion intelligent machines. And, that I see is going to be what I call as the dawn of the intelligence economy. I know Sam Altman recently wrote about the coming of the intelligence age, and I think it's a lot more broader than that. I think we are going to shift from the digital economy or the knowledge economy that we have today to this intelligence economy, where the major value addition is going to be in the intelligence realm. So
Right.
uh, I see a roughly, if I look at it, right, 1975 was the peak of this industrial revolution, and we had like the tangible assets, things that you could touch and feel. They were like roughly 5 times of the magnitude than the intangible assets. It completely flipped with the knowledge economy or the digital economy. The intangible assets became 5 times of the physical ones or the tangible ones. And I see this will going up to almost 90% of the whole value chain. And that's going to result in completely new kind of companies, reimagination of most of the verticals that we see today in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of financial services, in terms of how we are living, the whole new space of intelligence living will be actually coming together.
So amid all these, advancements, how do you think, India is positioned globally, in
Mhm.
terms of AI and robotics adoption? And what areas you think we are excelling in or we need to improve upon?
Yeah, I think if I look at the first phase of this massive transformation has been kicked off with massive amount of compute and capital being thrown, in terms of these large language models. And my sense is that, that approach is kind of like, of course, it worked really well with scale, but maybe the exponential returns are, starting to come down a bit. So I think it's exciting time. You have these large language models available in open source. People have tried all kind of experiments. So the good thing is that India could adapt a fast follower kind of a strategy where we leverage what they've already built. We learn from what the mistakes people have committed, and we rapidly iterate, on okay, what could be the peculiar use cases that could emerge in India. One critical advantage India has is that thanks to Aadhaar and India Stack, there's a lot of digitization that has actually happened,
Uh,
and
right,
because of that, we have this continental scale data sets available with us. One more perspective, which is very interesting, is that if you look at USA developed during post World War, when the industrial economy started, China started developing. They started building these smart uh, cities, but smart wasn't that smart at that time, right? Now
right,
India is on its path to become this vision of Viksit Bharat, and it is
right.
doing it at a time when the AI technology is also coming in its own. So if we are able to couple, the
The two.
initial investments in India Stack and then build the physical aspect of AI
Hmm.
with this whole Viksit Bharat, vision that we are seeing,
Right.
it could be super interesting where we could actually create these AI cities of sort, right? And we could leapfrog. And
Hmm.
I mean, China ended up building 3 billion homes for 1.4 uh, billion people, right? And that's
Right.
why they're having so much of economic grief right now. But I think India could be a lot more frugal. It could leverage data by
Hmm.
building these digital physical twins at scale, and it could even layer economic data on top of it to drive transformation a lot more
Right.
frugally. And at the same time, in some sense, we could leapfrog. So just like the way we leapfrog, going from no telephones to completely wireless services,
Right.
we could go from uh, cash to UPI.
Hmm.
I feel in a similar way we will go from largely maybe still developing economy to a developed economy
Developed
by
one.
leveraging this
Hmm.
intelligence age and
Right.
building India as a dominant player in this intelligence economy space.
So you co-founded, India's first AI fund, and you backed also companies like SigTuple and Niramai. So what do you think is the role of AI startups, in India's growth, and how do you support them, through AI Foundry?
Um, However, I see that these were some of the initial companies that actually literally build the AI innovation landscape in the country, and whether it's YSR, that Sigtuple, Niramai, Pixis, which is applying marketing, generative AI to marketing cloud. Uh, and one of the key things we saw was that at that time, AI was very verticalized, right? Like you were applying AI in a narrow, specific area. And because the deep learning was working in a vertical space, it wasn't as horizontal, right? Like ChatGPT right now, you're asking all kind of questions, right? You're
Right.
asking, recently I was using it to, my wife was suffering from dengue, and I was looking at the reports, and it was interpreting it and giving me some feedback and guidance, but it was pretty decent. So I see this whole horizontal movement, right? Not just vertical. And I think that is interesting because if I look at from a startup space, Indian startups have this idea of course, the existing companies will continue to do well. Um, I feel there's a big opportunity in literally all the SaaS companies will become AI SaaS companies, right? They have great customer traction, and I think if they can rapidly change their technology spectrum and leverage AI, they could be rapidly evolve into what I call as AI SaaS companies. Then I see a big opportunity in this whole space, the greenfield space, where I see this AI getting into. I was telling you, right, like the whole Viksit Bharat, the development we could do with AI,
Right.
and that is going to open up a massive space because the city's transformation, how do we work and live, is going to be very interesting. So just like the way we did with the ITPL, right? The first technology park that came up in Bangalore.
Right.
Uh, it could be super interesting to see, if we can actually create these kind of cities in which you can actually have these safety boards, AI safety boards. You could have these sandboxes, and you could actually test and validate AI at scale. Because 2025 is also going to be the year of regulation, right? So you also want to have AI which is safe, sustainable, and it is aligned to human use. So if you're able to build that, then you could not only apply it in India, but I've seen with the investments that we did so far, you could take it globally, right? Like there is a startup we supported as part of AI Foundry called Stempedia. It's a startup that is working with young kids, in K-12 segment. They are building these, AI and robotics kits. How do, kids get to learn by doing, right? And
Right.
building things, right? It's experiential way of learning. And I feel that will become the dominant form of learning. So they started in India. They're working with more than 3,000 schools in India. They work across 4 states, but then they have gone global. They are in Southeast Asia. They're in Middle East. They are in US, Europe. They are in South America as well. They're in places like Chile, and it's actually so interesting to see that innovation which was developed by two guys from IIT Kanpur Robotics Club is now going global,
Going
right?
global. Yeah.
Recently, they did actually what they called as a massive coding competition called Codever. It's one of the largest coding competitions, and
Okay.
they got entries from 80 plus countries. India, of course, uh, is 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 providing what I call as a very fertile ground for innovation. And if you are a startup or a young entrepreneur, you could use that fertile ground very quickly, leverage the data that is available here, user
Right.
feedback that is available here, come up with a really robust solution, and then you could take it globally. So even with Sigtuple, now they are going across the globe. They're not just in India, but now they are, going into Southeast Asia. They're getting into, US, Europe as well. They got FDC certification. Same is the case with YSA, which is you know, which is actually applying AI chatbots to mental health. They have more than 600 million conversations on the platform,
Right.
with more than 60% coming from US and Europe. Uh, They got FD certification as well, CE certification as well. They're working with 6 insurance companies in US, in Europe as well. They're working in UK. They're working with NHS. So what we see very clearly is that if Indian entrepreneurs they can leverage the early fertile environment that is available here, they can actually go global. And that's where I see that if you're able to come up with a good regulatory and legal framework in which we can validate and test, and then allow this kind of certification for startups to leverage. They could actually go global fairly quickly. In fact, last week I was in this India UK collaboration on responsible AI, and this is something that I'm seeing that with UK's ecosystem and India ecosystem, really creating this fresh ground in benchmarking and basically saying that yes, this AI is safe. Um, it really opens up possibility for much wider adoption of AI in society.
Right. So there is this, a lot of chatter about artificial general intelligence and robotics, or for that matter, humanoids coming together. Do you see that happening anytime soon, or if it does, and how does this look like together?
Yeah, I think humanoids are exciting. I mean, people are able to build uh, what should I say, more general purpose controllers, which can work on not just even services but also uneven services.
Mhm.
Robots now. I mean, we have exciting researchers like one of my good friend and partner at Foundry, Pulkit Agrawal. He's a professor at MIT, and he's pioneering this whole area of physical intelligence,
Right,
where you can actually program it once and it learns new things. There is actually a very interesting documentary on Netflix, Unknown Killer Robot. It's
right.
titled really badly, but you could actually see that. It's a very interesting work. There's another of our friend, Deepak Pathak. He's building this company called Skilled. They recently raised 300 million out of CMU, and it's exciting times. I think uh, while it's still early days, people are starting to show some interesting demos.
Mhm.
Um, I think it has to go through a few important areas before it will become mainstream. One is that the cost of the body is pretty high.
Right,
We don't realize, but human body is very versatile and it is able to regenerate itself, right? Like
exactly.
we've been playing with one of the humanoid robots in at ARTPARK, and we realized very quickly that the motors and actuators they burn out really fast, right? So you need to have that. So there's some interesting companies. A company called Tora Robotics, which is coming out of
Mhm.
ARTPARK. They're actually building these, actuators. There are a few companies which are trying to. There's a company called Strider, which is
Mhm.
actually building these quadruped robots, which can carry 20 kg of payload
Right,
across diverse domain. So I think these companies are young, um, uh, and they're exciting because it basically means that you're able to take a brain, train it in simulation, and then
right.
put it into a robot body, and it is able to solve new things or figure out things on its own.
True.
So they have what I call as autonomous operation. You might have seen those dancing robots from Boston Dynamics, right?
Mhm.
But they took almost 1.5 years to choreograph, right? Whereas now these robots are learning very quickly,
Much faster. Mhm.
much faster, right? So I
Mhm.
do expect them to make significant breakthroughs in next 2 to 3 years,
3 years.
time frame. And I see this whole the large language model reasoning abilities that we're starting to see uh, with Owen and others, right? And
Mhm.
then here we'll have this physical intelligence, and there will be a kind of like a meeting of minds and maybe a embryonic explosion of use cases.
Right.
So yeah, so that is definitely going to be very exciting time in next 3 to 5 years.
So going back to the functioning of Art Park, how do you think
Mhm.
Art Park is transforming sectors like healthcare, agriculture or education through AI and robotics?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting once you actually are able to get these
Mhm.
machines to work with some level of autonomy. At ARTPARK, they're building some really interesting
Mm.
robots in agri domain. They're building one which is able to
Mm.
go into these arcanet farms and pluck the arcanets and it's interesting because physical domain is actually very challenging. We are seeing two or three large challenges. One is that largely there is a decline in the labor input in the agriculture sector, right? So labor is not available, or there are
Mm.
some tasks like you have to climb up really tall trees, pluck things
Right.
that could be dangerous because people fall and other things. So we see that those are the areas which could be interesting. Then we have interesting startups like General Aeronautics, which is working with
Mm.
especially in the agri drone space, and they have managed to create a very good model where the cost per per acre, the intervention cost is less than almost like uh, 300 rupees or so. And at that size and scale, what happens is that you will actually have these companies with the potential to go global. So I
Mm.
do see a lot of agri automation solutions will actually emerge,
Right.
especially one because you can then multiply the output. You're not really dependent upon how much um, manpower is available. Second thing is that I think what's going to happen is that
Mm.
fundamentally, over a period of time, we are going to see more mechanization of agriculture,
Mm.
and that may not be the same way as it happened in US or Europe, because at that time the intelligence was actually not there. So
Right.
their mechanization equipments are very precise, and
Mm.
they ask for very precise operations to make it work. But the ones that will actually happen in India would be the ones which can actually allow for diverse kind of manpower
Mm.
skilled in at various levels and may not have very standard processes. And especially with India being having these small land holdings, right? That becomes very challenging. When you're flying drones almost close to 300 feet or 400 feet above, you
Right.
don't run across a tree cover, or these electric lines going, right? So
Right.
there's a lot of innovation that's actually happening in that area.
Right. So, with so many AI innovations happening internationally as well as in India, uh, how do you think, India can ensure that AI is developed ethically, especially with, regard to data privacy and inclusivity?
No, absolutely. You made a great point. I mean, I keep comparing this, and I
Mm.
keep giving this example, right? I mean, some of my favorite Bollywood movies in my childhood were those movies from Manmohan Desai, where you actually have twins and they get
Right.
separated at birth, in a
Right.
Mela after birth, in Mela or something, and one grows up to become a robber and one grows up to become
A cop.
uh, a cop, right? And
Yeah.
the difference is like what they
Mm.
went through, right? What was the cradle, how
Right.
they grew. So
Grow.
similarly,
Exactly.
AI is very powerful technology. Just like human intelligence, it is dual-edged in that sense.
Mm.
What kind of environment we would be able to grow will largely determine what kind of output we are able to get from it.
Mm.
It can definitely become correct if it is exposed to that kind of scenario. So using the right kind of data sets, using right kind of methods, then sandboxing it to check whether it is working as it is intended, and
Mm.
not just at the beginning, but throughout the life cycle is actually going to be very important. And that's where, I'm sort of like pushing for, creation of this kind of a city, or where you could actually have all of these facilities available for startups or large companies, and it's a bounded space, so people are able to come in,
Mm.
experiment. It has this legal authority and everything, and and that could actually allow for rapid evolution of not just AI technology, but also the societal and the safety norms associated with it. So what we get is something which is very human aligned. It's useful to us at a large level because it's a massive technology breakthrough, and it would be crazy if we don't leverage it to make uh, society more equitable. And I think that's where it's very imperative that we now work on creating this kind of a physical infrastructure, um, almost like a city scale, maybe 300, 400 acres of space, build it up in a way where you can model both the working as well as living part, and create these live test beds for people to come in, test their models, validate it, and take that safety certification and then apply it. I mean, right now it's little bit wild west, dare I say, right? I just release a new model, new API, and the world changes, right? But it's actually quite dangerous because now AI is going to be powering in a few years' time 30 to 40 to 50% of the entire workflows. So unless we validate it, unless we test it properly, I think larger adoption of it in society would be challenging because we don't know whether it is sustainable or not.
True. So my final question to you, what are the most promising AI solutions in India right now that you think are aimed at solving pressing social issues that we have currently, so that we don't just
I
get
think
ahead of the AI curve, we are also kind of looking at you know uh, the reality at the ground, and how can we
absolutely. I
also
think
scale those effectively.
yeah. So I think one, especially in the area of healthcare, I can see companies like Vyasa, Ciptopal, Niramay. They're doing some amazing amount of stuff.
Right.
Then I see in education space, education skilling, because that's actually very important, right? How do we have 300 million school kids, right? How do we make sure that they are AI native? They are building with AI and robotics, right? They're born to make full use of this intelligence
Right.
economy. How can we help in their transformation? So I think Stempedia is doing some amazing work there. In financial services, there's a company called Karma Life, which is leveraging AI to provide financial services to gig workers, and they're doing some really interesting work. Then I think the whole language is a big opportunity, and I think we have friends at Sarvam who are doing some interesting work,
Work. Right.
with smaller language models, which can be on your phone,
Mhm.
and opening up the language access is a huge thing. I mean, today, only if you know English, you actually have a chance at a labor market of certain kind. But imagine
Right.
if you're able to remove that barrier, and anybody with a good brain should be able to find use of that brain. So I think language is going to be a one big use case. Kratrim is also trying to do some work in that area. Sarvam, and of course, I think people are taking open source models and applying it to language use cases, and I see so many interesting startups, coming up there. I also see that you know the physical and the digital transformation of enterprises, that's going to be a big use case in India, and I see several young startups emerging. They probably are very young at this point of time, but I do see that there's a lot of talent that is actually in India. I feel that India is the AI talent center in the world,
Right.
given that maybe people, the kind of talent which could train these large language models, there are probably very few, probably more focused or located right now in Silicon Valley. But I think AI talent that could make use of those breakthroughs is here in India, and the engineering talent is here. And I think with these coding breakthroughs like Cursor and Copilot, I think that acceleration is going to be massive in India. India will be the AI coding capital of the world.
Yeah.
I see the
Hopefully. Yeah.
use cases and the user profile is actually from India. So I do see that people are going to take that, learn it quickly. India has a young population, and then start solving or building AI for the world from India.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, and I'm sure, we are on the right track as far as the AI wave is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your valuable insights on the future of AI and robotics. I'm sure our viewers and listeners will benefit a lot from this conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.